Good afternoon, everyone. I think we're in for a real treat this afternoon. I have the delight of welcoming and introducing briefly our two workshop hosts. Today's workshop is about personal mastery, leadership excellence, and organizational transformation. I can barely do the first, so I don't know anything about the other two. I think it's up to our two speakers to really get to the nuts and bolts of the whole process. Let me start with Mrs. Julia Culen. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Mrs. Culen is an executive coach and consultant in the field of corporate development and cultural transformation. In her approach, she combines systems thinking with wisdom, traditions, and mindfulness practice. She gives keynotes, publishes, and teaches on topics like new work, self-organization, and fostering human potential. In her role as visiting professor at the University of Vienna, she co-leads research projects in the field of new work, which I'm sure we'll be learning about today. Together with her partner, she leads retreats on presence and personal mastery, focused on personal empowerment. Mrs. Culen is also strongly engaged in bringing mindfulness to the world of business and politics. She has held consulting and leadership positions at the Boston Consulting Group, UniCredit Bank Austria, and Bötter Group, New World Day, before founding Culen Mayhofer Partner in 2014. And Mr. Christian Mayhofer is an ordained monk in the Soto Zen lineage. He's been working in the field of leadership, consulting, and organizational development for over 30 years, focusing on coaching of leadership teams and C-level executives. In his 20s, he was a therapeutical leader of a clinic for the treatment of drug addiction and co-founder of the Austrian AIDS organization. So, having confronted such immense human suffering, he took responsibility at a relatively young age, compelling him to look deeper into the source and relief of human suffering. From a Christian background, he was engaged in Tibetan Buddhism. In Zen. He began practice in the Tibetan lineage before settling into Zen, spending much time at monasteries before becoming ordained in the Zen tradition and teaching at Buddhist and Advaita studies. He since decided to bring this wisdom into the business and executive world, which he sees as a very important and powerful lever. And in order to do so, he's developed together with Julia a genuine approach called personal mastery and business excellence, combining the deep knowledge of our spiritual ancestors and blending it today with today's demands of modern management and business execution. He's committed to help reduce suffering individuals, organizations, and the overall economy by coaching, counseling, advising leaders in Buddhist and Advaita philosophy and spiritual practices. So he speaks at conferences, works as a coach and as coach and consultants, and holds retreats together with his wife and business partner Mrs. Culen. So.
Okay? Yeah. So we are very delighted to be here, coming all the way from Austria to Hong Kong. We've been here actually 4 years ago and worked here with clients, so it's wonderful to be back here at the university and meet you guys, and work with you through this workshop. It's also, of course, a big honor to be invited to speak at such a conference with a topic that also in Austria many people related to. When we said we're going to Hong Kong and we're speaking on a conference on Buddhist economy, everybody was like, wow, that's so cool, we are so curious what you come back with. So there is a huge interest and people are open, and I think it's just about the right time to start addressing these topics and issues in a totally new level. So Today we will bring to you how our way that we developed, how we see organizational transformation as organization development and management coaches. And we developed our approach how we can help facilitate and support genuine transformation, not only just, I would say, superficial change in organizations. So we hope we can work with you together. So this is a workshop. It's supposed to be interactive, so we hope that you go in discussion, so you don't have to listen to the whole thing and then ask 1 or 2 questions, but we will be highly interactive. You can actually ask us questions all the time.
The real advantage today in this afternoon workshop is that we are non-academics.
Yeah.
You don't have to behave like students in an academic setting. So just feel free to be part of the show.
Yeah, so we will co-create this workshop together. So we will bring a part and you will bring a part, hopefully. So, yeah, welcome again. You have a mic. You can have...
No, you don't have to. So actually, to begin with, was the question which is interesting for us is, what brought you here? What brought you here in specific into this workshop? Because you have a choice, you know, there are 3 fantastic presentations over there in the parallel screen. And I would like to be there, to be honest. I know anyway what I'm talking about, I hope. But, so what brought you here? And in order to do so, we would like to invite you to just find your partner, turn to the partner next to you and start exchanging. What is the interest that brought you here?
If you don't have a neighbor, you have to move.
Yeah.
Like standing
And
up, moving somewhere.
Works usually like, you know, standing up, lifting that body. Two more minutes.
Okay, you see, I'm approaching you with the mic, so no, you want to share? Yeah, thank you.
Hello, everybody. In my point of view, I think that the world is changing, and it is changing very fast. And then the pace is it's now at a point of almost uncatchable. So for the previous 20 years or 30 years, we can see changes, and then we can kind of follow. But now the change is almost too much. So, and then this is one point. Another point is that smaller organizations are being merged together and being taken up by bigger organizations. So big organizations like conglomerates, their change is going to make a big contribution. So I would like to learn from the two of you how we can find ourselves here in the middle of this. And Ms. Mock here, she has been volunteering in NGOs, and then she experienced great difficulty. There are people who are so stubborn, and then
Really?
no, even though there is some changes, it is which is inevitable. For example, digitalization of stuff, but there would still be people. Oh, my department, we are all very busy. Nobody's doing that. You do this.
Thank you. Well, that's over here.
Thank you very much.
I saw a hand rise. Good. Thank you.
For me, just simple to say, I'm very interested in management, and also need to. I also very inspired from the Buddhist teaching to find the way to in the new management deal with the people.
Yeah.
Actually, now for me in my company and my team, I focus on the tradition culture, also to try to find new things. So I want to find some solution inspired. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the question is also in the direction, what can you as an individual do, and where do you find yourself in these big corporations?
One more, maybe.
Yeah, well, you want? Oh, okay.
I'm here mainly to learn about how to deal. I mean, technology is making great things, but in a way it also makes us more superficial. In fact, you always find yourself interrupt. How to keep deep focus in your own direction while using technology.
Thank you. I think this is really one of the main questions and challenges we have. And as we said, if something becomes more, the other thing co-arises. So maybe the more the world becomes digital, the more we have to become human. So this could be the antidote that we are going to talk about. Thank you.
I would like to share a little bit what brought us here, what brought us to that arena, to merge, or to blend actually the wisdom of our ancestors. Actually, this time we are talking about actually Buddhist economy and Buddhist wisdom. But at the end of the day, I think we could call it wisdom traditions of mankind, because they are, you find them everywhere in our traditional territory. And some of them surprisingly similar. So obviously we have to deal with one humankind. And when you read and listen to Buddha's teaching and to the sources of suffering, for instance, you can find them everywhere. You find them here in Asia, you find them in China, in Hong Kong, and in Vienna, and in Australia definitely as well. and for sure over in the US. And all. So because it's about being a human being and not being kind of packed into a traditional paradigm called Judaic Christians as we come from, or Asian as we come from. And what we witnessed over the last decade was a fundamental shift in our environment. Not only environmental-wise, but technological-wise, of course. And also the bringing up of people changed over the course of the last 30 years. People become more illiterate, more developed, more interested in a larger picture of the world, and also in their own spiritual unfolding. This has changed fundamentally. So corporations are facing a different different labor force, different. Also, executives themselves are different today than 15 years ago. And when I think I'm now in this arena for more than 30 years, and until, let's say, 10 years ago, the questions which were addressed in boardrooms where we were invited to were very kind of technological driven or baseline driven, or P&A sheets, baseline figures, business models, etc., etc. And all the other territories which you could summarize in the kind of corporate culture territory, this soft or seemingly soft issue, haven't been even an issue in the boardroom. But that has changed. And figures have, until then, figures seem to be really solid and, kind of really fixed things, and you measure qualities and success in figures. And now, the same executives, if they're still on duty, realize that, or experience the phenomenon that the figures are soft, and everyone in here knows how malleable balance sheets are at the end of the day. You get what you want to get. And they knew it all the time. But now they face another phenomena that what they thought what would be soft and malleable like culture is massive, is untouchable by them. They cannot access it if they don't have the tools, if they can't read this territory. And surprisingly, their track record, which brought them into C-level seat, they have not been taught anything about this former soft issues, like culture. What is this phenomena? What is this human thing? What is this thing, the thing in between the divisions, the teams? What is it that people, we in the West have a massive thing on burnout, this generalization of people just don't play according to the rules anymore. And so all of a sudden they realize they have no tools addressing the phenomenon. They fail. And so this made us think, because then it started suffering stuff. We have what shall we do? And in addition with technological development, this broke the last illusion. The last and major illusion of management was we are in control. Because we are told, the tools we are taught at universities like that one is be in control. Your job is to control the business, the labor force, the processes, the production, whatever, and the market. And all of a sudden, I think this might be the good, or one of the fantastic and positive aspects of digitalization. It finally broke that illusion. It just matched. And now we have they face two options: to try to more control the uncontrollable, to do what didn't work yesterday better and more tomorrow, or think, what else? What are our other options? What are the territories we have no clue about? And to be curious and to find the research there, and to start the research.
And as you said before, I think there were a lot of comments on that. as the speed of change has become so massively and the complexity has risen to a level that is almost impossible for us to control also in business, it's also a very good thing, because we need now to think about and to find new ways of addressing and accessing organizations and to lead them in a totally different way. So it's always good if we are pushed to our limits and when the old thing is so badly working that we really are ready for something fundamentally new. And this is the good thing when our clients approach us. So the typical questions they come with is also, as you said and as Christian said, you know, we have become too slow, we cannot respond in fast enough time to the changes in the outside world. There's a new paradigm, there is disruption, there are some new competitors showing up, there's like China coming up, also it's a big threat in Europe because China make a lot of things better and cheaper and even faster than in Europe. So we think what's really our strength and what's our business model of the future and how can we sustain our business. And we need to have a more agile culture, which is a big thing, talking about new work and how can we attract young people who want more self-empowerment and more self-organization. So all these kind of questions. But the leaders, they grew up in a different paradigm, which was more a linear way of growing, and it was more an optimization mindset and becoming faster and better. And now they are challenged to become different, fundamentally different and new. And suddenly these organizations who were very good in doing what they're doing, always better and better, have to become more creative. They have to deal with customers that are very demanding, and they have to go in a more co-creative approach. And suddenly they have to work across their silos where they were used to stay within their own group of experts. Now they have to work together in a new way. And it's questionable for many of them, where will growth come from? So we talked about the prosperity versus the growth paradigm, and it's all very overwhelming for people. And so when we look at organizational transformation, which is mostly why people come, so we need to create a more open, creative, and wonderful organization where all the innovations come out and the business and the growth. Is this something you're familiar with? Is this a problem that you say? Yeah, okay. So the organizations have stiffened, they have become also old, and they need to create new ways of working because work is not working anymore. And so they say, you know what, we hire our consultants and they help us creating a new organization. Isn't that great? So, well, and the common way of thinking about organizational transformation was, okay, we have to work on the organization. So, and this is actually, what most people think, and then they do. Then they work on the structures first and the working methods, and then they do a reorganization, and then they do different styles of working. So we suddenly start trying to stretch and change the organization as if this was a thing that can be changed. And then there are massive like change workshops and vision things and restructuring and new processes and a lot of time and money and effort put into it. And then after 1 or 2 years of usually transformation project, you find yourself in the same situation as you were before. Just with an even more confused staff, with frustrated people from the next change project who already say, okay, whatever, I will go to this workshop, I will pretend, I will do as if I would cooperate, but I really don't believe it. And the most problem we have is that these leaders that are talking about creativity and cooperation, how are they interacting? You know, look at the boards, look at our leadership structures. They talk about something, but they don't commit to it. So this is where we said we are not interested in doing another organizational development project. And we thought about even more, so what is actually driving organizations, and why do they manifest in the way that they are manifested? And it was not so different. What do you think, what organizations, how they manifest is a result of? So one major result, what do you think? Let me suggest something. We say it's leadership. it's leaders, and actually if it works well, it's leadership. If it doesn't work, it just evolves in its own way and not always the way you maybe would want it. But actually leadership is the way, it's the doing, is the way how you can change, manifest, and get access to organizations. So this is the organization that you see is expressed leadership. And we see right now that there's not so much focus on leaders. And we could see that if leaders somehow find a new way, a new culture of the leaderships, of the way they lead the organization, that in the end the organization step by step transforms, because the organization is malleable and it adapts to the impulses and to the inputs and to the clarity that it gets, to the heart that it gets from the leadership. And for us, leadership is not only the top management, it's also self-leadership. But actually, our way to access it is there's always a center core management team that sets the rule for the rest. So they will be copied, they will be watched, and whatever they do or don't do can make a massive difference. And we went to Silicon Valley to see how founders and how CEOs are shaping the whole culture of organizations and systems. And we could see that mostly as long as they were still owning it, and when they were really coming with a purpose there, you could see that their mindset and who they are, you could find it in every part of the organization. So how people dealt with each other, what was important. Then you could see one of the leaders was becoming a father, and suddenly he said, nobody should be in the office after 6:30. So you could see that the own development of leaders and how they are shaping their mind is that they can shape organizations. So we said, when we go, so what is actually driving leadership? So behind leadership, it's also not a thing or an object or something to be worked on, because again, the usual way we see, okay, leadership is bad. I mean, I haven't ever been in a company where I talk to the employees and they say, we have a wonderful leadership team. They are so inspiring, they are so engaging, and they're creating a wonderful culture where we'll have to work. It's more like it's toxic, they don't care, they say something different, and then they behave in another way. They want something from us where they don't commit. So it always goes very strongly into who are these people and how are they behaving, so who are the role models. And I don't say that this is the only way how you can shape organizations, but this is our way how we access it in the most direct way. Of course, there's a lot of other circumstances, so what business are you in and how long have you been in the place and so on. But this is our way of accessing organizational transformations via leadership and going even deeper, because maybe you also have heard about leadership development programs who didn't deliver. And we had clients coming up saying, you know, we had a wonderful leadership development program. It was so great. People loved it. And they gave like A grades every time because it was really, really good trainers there. But you know what? The leadership really didn't improve. Because if you ask the clients of leadership who are the employees, they say nothing changed. And I had this my own experience. I saw my boss coming back very inspired from, she said, I was in such a wonderful leadership session. I was in a wonderful castle and we had the top trainers from Oxford and we had so much fun with the colleagues and it was like really entertaining for her. But I said, okay, but what's the use for me personally? So I didn't really see a shift coming there. So we thought maybe leadership programs are not working that well either, because people learned theoretically about how you should lead. But how does it relate to them as a person? And what makes really a difference is maybe not knowing what leadership styles are there. And Christian and I also thought there are so many books about leadership. I don't know how many, but many, a lot, thousands probably, about right leadership and what kind of leadership and new leadership and this leadership. And I thought if the lack of knowledge would be the problem, then we wouldn't have a problem here. Then it would be so great. So there is not a lack of knowledge. And somebody said before, well, actually, there's so much knowledge we have at hand. We know what we have to do, but we don't do it. So the question that we ask ourselves, why don't we do it? And what is needed to do it? And we said we have to go even one step deeper behind talking about organizations or talking about leadership, but there's something different we have to talk about first. And then we said to leaders, you know, leadership is about leading, and leading means about going first. So whatever you want has to start with yourself.
Before we go that one step deeper, I would like to recap on kind of a parallel stream. Let's call it the wisdom or spiritual or Buddhist stream. Because what we are talking about until now, you could also phrase it or look through a Buddhist lens or perspective on that. And all what you described, you can see suffering. You can see mental concepts at work. You know, our mind, and this is one of the core addressees of a Buddhist practice, is how to live with your mind in the presence of that, maybe up here between your ears, the thing that is describing the world we are perceiving, we are living in. And there is this saying that the world as we perceive it is a direct result of our mind construction. So then, this is not pointing outward towards the world, but inward towards our mind. And this is a first difference, because when you relate to your own personal experience, we perceive through all our senses a world out there. We, the so-called I, myself, is separated from all the rest in here. This audience, the room, the universe, Hong Kong in specific, etc., etc. And it's a phenomenon. All of you have the same experience. It's you, or whatever is looking out of your eyes, and is observing out there. And usually, it's hostile, what is out there. It's out of control. We have hardly access. I have hardly access to you, and to you, and to you, and to your behavior, and to the weather, and to the rain, and to the political situation in I don't know where, in Austria. So we find ourselves in a basic hostile environment, and this is a kind of nature of our being. And in the same way we relate to the world out there, we try to fix something which is broken out there, seemingly. In the same way executives behave or do. Like, something is wrong with the organization, who could fix that for me? And this is, yeah, so let's do a project, let's have consultants come in, or my in-house consultants, or though the experts, they shall fix it for me. Like, we go to the plumber who is fixing our drain. And this is an interesting relationship. But it seems so natural, because obviously something is not working out there in the organization. But when there's truth in Buddha's finding that we are the source of the world we inhabit, we live in, we are part of, there is no separation. So the first and massive source of suffering is the illusion of a separate self. So what if there is no separation, and that what is looking out of my eyes is not perceiving a separation, but a being embedded in a larger self? And then, secondly, that it's not out there, but it might be in here. And so we are in the classical cognitive approach to a world out there, we try to fix something. But coming back to the history of humankind, we realize that the Age of Enlightenment, we're talking about 400 to 500 years, actually. And if time go back to Aristotle, then we have about 2,500 years. But at the same time, we have a human tradition of hundreds of thousands of years of experiencing ourselves as a whole and holistic beings. And this made us think, because what we see, in coming back to what we started with, the tremendous acceleration of speed in processes in the world out there made the tools not workable anymore. So we had to get access to these deeper underlying resources we are all embedded in.
So if you want to see changing organizations from a toxic, intoxicated cultures, you could also see the same behavior in the leadership. And we thought, and we also made the experience, if there is a hostile environment that they are creating within themselves and for the others, and then the result is that they have to control even more and punish people and try to incentivize them as if they were like small kids. You shouldn't even do that. Then they are recreating and reaffirming. So their own way how they see the world manifests, and they always get the proof, and suddenly it becomes a fixed thing. And then they try to change the fixed thing, which is organizational development. So we said, no, we go another way. We go to the source of leadership excellence. And this is what we call personal mastery. And this is, and we will go into this deeper very soon, it goes always deeper and deeper. But we say personal mastery is a process of self-empowerment and internal transformation. So our main claim that we take is to say the internal transformation of people who have a special responsibility and who are shaping the context for others will translate via leadership into a different organization. So we say the transformation of organizations and systems is not a function of changing the organization, but it's the manifestation of an inside and inner transformation of people in charge. And we could see that thing happening when people who were leading organizations were going through this internal transformation together, which is really important, not only individually, but together, like 2 or 3 or 4 people going through this process together, aligning, then they could massively impact the organizations or the system they were responsible for. And we can again and again see that people who have cultivated this personal mastery, that we will immediately explain and talk to you about, can make a huge change no matter where they are in the organizations. So people, we have, maybe you have known Peter Bostelmann. He was cited many times this time in SAP, and he was bringing his personal mindfulness practice as an engineer into SAP, starting a massive global company-wide mindfulness programs, and he's now Chief Mindfulness Officer. And time after time, the organization is transforming because more and more people buy into it, and he takes them with him. I met him last year. He's just one example, and he was just the one employee. He was not like a star brought in or bought from the outside, but he was committed to make change happen and to bring it outside. So this is something that's not only true for leaders who already are in these leadership positions, but for people who cultivate a personal mastery and go with their own commitment.
We are always surprised, and I still am, how unconscious leaders are about their personal impact they have on our organization. Or at least the misunderstanding of the level where they have impact. They think, many of them think, because I'm the CEO, I can do this, and I can fire you back here, and I can hire you here, and promote the 2 ladies in front of you. So this is a very simplistic approach of impact. And you know, bad thing is you only can hire a person once, and you only can fire a person once. So this is a very limited power play, actually. You can spread a lot of fear. This is a very contagious qualification, maybe. but the behavior of leaders is contagious. The behavior of leaders is contagious. And now coming to the point that that leadership is not only a top-down phenomena, but a phenomena working in all directions. And the one who has kids in here knows that you are not so much leading your kid, they are leading you most of the time. And if you have employees, they make you go as well. They make you run if they do whatever they do. So leadership works in every direction. And therefore everybody is kind of in a leadership driving scheme. And this is a massive insight for many. If they know it for the first time and we tell you, hey, you are the CEO here. Are you aware that when you show up like that, this is a massive information for the whole system? If you are, I don't know, polite or impolite, listening to or only talking, you set the stage. You set the rhythm of the organization. You permanently impact. And this makes this point a little bit toward the direction where people are powerful, what the impact is to be set. Because there is this quality of information in space, and information travels much faster than light. And something happens over here and the whole organization knows it by tomorrow, latest. And surprisingly.
So we said, if these leaders have such an impact, but the level of self-awareness is so low, and they can really create a lot of harm with not being self-aware, with not being able to reflect on themselves, to feel themselves, and to see really what's going on around them, to be present, but fixing the world out there. And we said, okay, before we even talk about the organizations, we will first look inside you, because you are your main tool, and you are who you are, is the being. This is more important than the doing, is what you're doing in your leadership day and managing around. And the having will then be the result of the being. So let's focus on really the source of who you are while you lead. And then eventually the organization and the system you're responsible for might respond. Because it resonates with you, it resonates with the energy of the leadership team. And it aligns itself automatically, and we could see that really happening. It's like magic. You don't have to put a lot of like enforcement on the organization. And I think some of the leadership or organization development programs can be violent for people. Yeah, it can force them to do things differently, although they don't know why and how. So it is really a translation of an inner process into an outer process. So are you with us? Is this logic? Does this sound stupid or a no-brainer, or what do you think? I see you're still smiling.
So how do you say that it's being different from like the culture? Like you talk about personal mastery, so I think what I hear is like the CEO, the leaders. But I think a lot of time I think people use the word culture. The word culture.
Yeah.
So are they the same to you?
Yeah. This is again, we treat culture as if it was a thing that we can change, as if it was like a solid thing. But culture, or the communication, that the communication is really bad in the organization. So these are the leadership. But it's actually a process. So it's a process. Culture is not a thing, but it's a process, it's an activity. We call it culturizing. And it is recreated in every single way how we relate to each other when we meet, how friendly we are, if we come to a meeting and if we are respectful or not. So culture also can be transformed in the very moment. We call it also instant transformation. In the moment you become aware of what's happening and that you are the source of it, you can immediately change it, the culture. So it's not technically, it's possible to instantly transform the culture of an organization when the organization is aware, and if the consciousness of the organization goes deeper or higher, no matter, and some people, and there's the logic that says the consciousness of the organization cannot exceed the consciousness of the leadership team. Even if people down there are already ready for it personally, the whole organization is limited by the awareness, by the consciousness of the leadership team. So we can see that many times that people are open to things, they're trying it, and then they get punished or they see something different. So we see culture as the result of an activity that is recreated every day together and can be transformed instantly in every moment, because it's a question of choice and not a necessity. It's not a fixed thing. But we treat it as if we would have to have a huge stone that we have to bring from A to B, which takes 10 years and millions. So we think the more direct access to culture is to go via consciousness and via awareness. And this brings us actually to wisdom traditions, because they exactly have found ways how to cultivate a different culture in ourselves. So culture is not a thing out there, but it is, as Christian said, the energy of the leaders that translate into organizations and manifests in things that we think are fixed, but they're not.
And you see, whenever there's a new leader coming on board, there is kind of a sudden excitement in the organization. What will be the opening? Hopefully this time we will succeed, and he will address, or she will address, all the issues we all know about play. And yeah, this is a kind of a resonance of the body of the organization to a new possibility arising. And then you have to play and show according to that expectation. And you see, just listening to you, I realized, or I thought about the Catholic Church when they got their last new leader, this Pope. Everybody was excited because he came from a different source, angle of the organization, and he was carrying so many expectations. And over the course of the job and the years, he was facing a different reality of the body of the organization, kind of heavy millstones seemingly binding them.
But it adapted. It started adaptation, and now there are new conversations possible, even if we think it's very slowly, but they now talk about sexual harassment for the first time. And so his way of compassion is impacting the way that the whole system is. So the system is changing with him, although it seemed unchangeable.
And yes.
Somehow we all have a feeling that leadership excellence is not something not trainable. Somebody are born to be leaders. So in your experience, how is it like, for example, with the effect of personal mastery? Is that what you mean?
Actually, we have not come to the point what personal mastery is. So we will go deeper into the questions where we see the source of the personal transformation, because this was just like the introduction in explaining you the model, how we come to the question what is personal mastery, and maybe it gets clearer when we go deeper into this question what it is. But before we do it, we would like to ask you, if you hear personal mastery, what does it mean for you? Everybody seems to have a picture or an association. So maybe you take just a quick time before we go and explain our approach, which is also just a mental concept. It's our approach, but it doesn't say that this is what it is, like everything. So maybe you want to take just 1 or 2 minutes again and exchange what is personal mastery for your person. What does it mean? It would be great for us to get some input, and then we go to the next section. Okay, go ahead. Turn to your neighbor or to a different person. What is your association with personal mastery?
Okay. Yes. What are your findings?
I think both of us are thinking in a certain way. If you come from anything you want to achieve something, achieve to the level of a personal mastery level means it starts from within yourself. So we usually call as many self. You are born and raised with many self of yourself. To go to the next level, you have to aware and develop every mini self consciously and worked on to develop. And when you reach that personal mastery level, it could be 10,000 hours of practice or anything. Once you reach that, you no longer consciously practice. It becomes just you. You manifest, it shows unconsciousness and do it as what it naturally you can do. So it's not about you are born with leadership. For me, it can be taught. We all have a nature to become a leader, but only you have to aware and practice and live the life of personal mastery level. That's how you become.
Thank you for doing our workshop here. Summarizing it all up. Thank you. Enjoy the afternoon. And I would like to come back to your question. I wouldn't buy too much into that assumption that there are these kind of natural born leaders, and therefore there are those privileged ones, and we all are the rest. And so I think this is another mental concept of not taking responsibility for the unfolding and cultivating of who you really are. Because yes, there might be something what we call, what is the narrative of natural born leaders, but I wouldn't leave it there. The world is too precious and too much under pressure to have it there. And it does not maybe respect the potential of being a human being, having the privilege to be born as a human being. And again, another according to teaching. And I would like to... Now I broke it. This is wrong. Oh, hey, it's back again. Okay. Before we go to the mastery, I would like to share that once more. You can see here the direction of thinking, our logical approach to life, of who we are. This usually is like, first I have to have that job, then I can do and act accordingly, and then I will be a good leader. Or first I will have to have that job, and then I will get through my doing the income, and then I will be happy because I can afford the new apartment. Or the same with our partners. First I have to be slim, fit, and whatever, and then I will act accordingly, and then she will love me. Really. Well, there's some truth in that, you know. So, bad example. Okay, this was a bad example, but still. And this is kind of logic and pragmatic approach to life. The direction of life is completely different. It's completely reversed the other way around. First we are, then we act according to that who we are. And then there will be a showing in the world, in my life, in your life, responding and according to that being. This is in every process in nature, that's the case. It's always, that grass is always growing, and then it is showing in whatever conditions that there are. So this is a fundamental twist. And again, it's an internal twist, because not everything that seems rational and pragmatic is the solution, but often it's the source of the problem. How we approach that. First I have to be in the role of the CEO, and then the company will be happy. What if not? What if any of the employees of this ex-company has the, and that's the choice. That's the choice, that's the fundamental power every one of us is in charge of. That's the fundamental choice we have every single day, is who I am today, what is my being today. beyond my condition. How do I show up? And am I the invitation for trust of my superiors to hand over a new job to me? Am I that soul? Am I cultivating that soul, that quality of my being, that the world can see, oh, she is trustworthy, so why not approach her to the sea? So, for us, personal mastery is a process of an internal transformation, where all domains are being cultivated in the life. And we distinguish between four main domains of being a human being. First, this is isn't it? At the domain of cognition, of our rational mind. And whoever is acquainted to the Buddhist studies, this is also pointing to the main source of suffering. This is where actually most of the suffering is rooted in our rational, in this fantastic tool called our human mind. This quality of creating and shaping the world we all live in, we all witness. The thinking, the thoughts and mental concept. If the world, as it appears to us, this is a mental concept, manifested in solid stuff, you know? This is an invention, what we are guests in. This university building is an invention, it's a pure creation. Behind that is a mental concept. And the ability to abstract. It's a fantastic helper to survive as a human breed on this planet, is the ability to abstract, to create from A to B to C. At the same time, there is a flip side to the coin. It's the source of identification or of over-identification. Because in a given cultural narrative where the mind is so massive, as we live in for centuries now, at least in the West, and you're in Asia, you're really coming up, you're speeding up fast, is if we are told, and if you just look at our education system. Our education system is the pure expression of cognition, of rational mind being trained and formed and shaped and tuned even. And whoever is better, the rat race starts already there. Be smarter than your neighbor, be the best in class, be the one out there who is. And that points directly in the psychological territory. We have phrases for that, like identification, the becoming of self. This starts when you're about between 2 and 3 years old. When you start from suddenly the child starts to say I. Oh, it's I, here. Until then there is no I, there is no self. But then the relationship to the external world and also the separation starts with an I versus the rest. Until then, the baby is part of a heavenly universe, you know, no separation between mom and dad and drink and food and whatever it needs. So this is where the illusion of a separate self starts. And our cognitive world is massive in showing us that you are the one who, you achieved the new role, you are better than your neighbor, your car is bigger than, and all the real, so-called real world out there is shaped and based in cognition. The advertiser you meet when you go to the underground is addressing directly that. You'll be much more happier when you look pale, when your hair are that, when you are slim, when you drive BMW and not Hyundai, or you name it. And you live in the second floor and not in the first floor, whatever. So this is a direct relatedness to self.
And the tool is a language and thinking. So this is the main tool of the mind. And even we start to think that we are our thoughts. So all of you who have practices know that one of the main practices is to distinguish between the observer and the thoughts. Because some people think if they stop thinking, they will maybe stop to exist. So who am I when I'm not thinking? Who am I when I'm not my thoughts? And this is very interesting for leaders to comprehend. And personal mastery is also a way to get access to it. So maybe we can go to the next slide.
Yeah, and over time you start believing what you think, and you think, oh, I'm that what is thinking. I'm my thought. So I must be such a smart girl or guy because my thought is so smart. Oh, what if not? What if you are not your thought, so that you already have a mind that creates thought? So maybe you shouldn't take them too personal. Bad news for some of us. But oh. Yeah. So a tradition, a Western practice like Buddhist practice, in its core fundament, it addresses to distinct the self or the mind self from that who you might be. Let's put it that way. At least in the first step, that we are not our mind. We have a mind. It's a fantastic tool. But if you look out in the so-called real world, there is no separation of that. We are one. And a product of our minds are our concepts, our worldviews. And our worldviews, how things should be, culturally and individually, are pure, made up. They are creation by our mind. And they are a kind of a result out of a negotiation process which we call society. Over here we do things like that. And after time, if you're born in that, this is reality. Things have to be like that, otherwise they are wrong. And as long as we do not own fully that insight, our mind, is in charge of our life. It's sitting in the driver's seat of our life because it is playing its concept. And if the concept is not meeting with reality, what happens? A gap is there. There's something wrong out there. But the phenomena is, just look, listen it. The phenomena is we never challenge our concepts as wrong. We always change reality as wrong. Something wrong out there. Because it's not meeting my concept of how it should be, how my wife should be, how you should be dressed, how my boss should be, how the world should be.
Or even my own interpretation of the world and who people are becomes what really is in the moment. We really believe our own interpretations and we don't make this distinction anymore. There's something happening and then there's our interpretation and it suddenly becomes what is happening. So maybe you observe yourself how you immediately make up something out of the moment. Probably he's in a bad mood becomes he's in such a bad mood. Probably he had a fight with his wife. Oh, he's such in a bad mood because he was in a fight with his wife. So it becomes reality and then we relate to this other person and they don't know anything about our thoughts. And so this is unconsciously happening all the time and it's possible to create a practice to become more aware of how we recreate patterns also with people, that we fix them because we have an image of who they are and we don't even see anymore what's happening because we're just relating to our thoughts. So this is also important for leaders who have a concept of how their colleagues are, how the organization is and how it should be. And it doesn't have to do anything with him, it becomes an objective reality immediately. And this is where we don't have impact on objective reality because this is just how the world is and how people are, but we have access to our own mental concepts and we can become aware of them, distinct them, and see if they're still feasible for us or if we might see also a different option to what we thought was fixed.
Okay. There are some practices cultivated over thousands of years actually by men, especially to hold and to cultivate mind, and definitely meditation and contemplative techniques. And they are social techniques, to be honest. Because the Buddha, 2,500 years ago, he was definitely not interested to found a religion. He was interested to end suffering and to show ways out of suffering. He was, how can we overcome that obstacle? And so meditation is one of these cultivation techniques and mindfulness practices in these two fields.
And a lot of people would stop here, you know, and this is what's happening right now. It's stopping with mindfulness, and you see the word that's in mindfulness is mind, and it looks like science is now coming in. Neuroscientists are making studies about the mind and how great meditation is, and that your focus gets more, that you can enhance even your concentration and optimize yourself. And suddenly the whole thing has become again a self-optimization thing. It's become even a business out of it, which is not bad because it has some really great effect, but it stays somehow with the mind, you know, calming the mind, training the mind, getting control of your thoughts. So it's again in our narrative of having control, and the mind is getting bigger and bigger and always more important. So we said it is very good and it's really necessary to own your thoughts and to be aware and self-conscious. But there are 3 other dimensions that are really important and that have a little bit left behind, although they were so important in the in all wisdom traditions and for our lives. And so the second dimension that we suggest for everyone, especially leaders, to cultivate is the dimension of the heart. So this is the next, we call also the activities is intention. And the intention is something that you really want from your heart. And it's not a wanting from your brain, something that you want to have, but intention from the heart is something you want to contribute. This is what you want to bring into the world. This is the reason why you're here, and this is your special contribution. And there are no big things and there are no small things. There can be intention to improve the place by do a very nice cleaning or make good coffee for people, or give them a smile when you are working in whatever position. So it doesn't really have to do with big things, but the intention is so important, and the intention and the heart is also where we're cultivating empathy, self-compassion, compassion, love. It's where the warmth is. It's where it's what we really want, is what makes our heart break. Yeah, what really matters to us. So what we take a stand for in our lives, and we can feel the difference if it comes from the mind or if it comes from the heart. And I think if we would be able to more talk about our intention, about our heart, about love and connect on this side, we would have a totally different world we're in. But it's very difficult at this time. It's unprofessional, and people said, is it possible in business organizations? I mean, can we ask people to talk about their intention, about their heart, about their purpose? And I said, how cruel is it to not allow them to talk about it? Isn't this the bad thing? And we somehow all suffering from this lack of heart and warmth, because this is a main part of the human condition. And we somehow created a world for ourselves where we believe it doesn't have a place. So what we are promoting in our approach of personal mastery, it's not about only the mind, it's about adding the heart quality, and the deep and genuine emotions, not only like feelings like fear or some quick happiness, but deep emotions, the empathy, purpose. We can also call it the Dharma. It's something that you wanted to be when you were a child, when you remember. That was really important. Here's also where the values live, the real values, not the thought values. You know, organizations we are compassionate about, and we have clients is in the middle and so on. But it's all some thought construct.
And also boldness lives in the heart as a quality. Not only there's love, but boldness is a heart quality. And it needs a lion heart to address things often. Therefore, there's the saying, you know. And yeah, this is again an act of cultivating.
And it's we don't have it on the slide, but it's also the domain where kindness lives. and kindness is very important for leaders. Whatever they do, even if they have to do the hard decisions, if they have to let go of people, you can do everything in a genuine kindness, even if it's not a good thing. You don't have to be unnecessarily cruel. And we even have organizations that say, it's now a swearing word, but they say we have a no asshole culture. So no assholes are allowed in this organization. So people who think because they're expert, they can treat other people badly, because these people can, we talked about culture, there are some people who can really spoil the culture in an organization, and there are two things that change culture. The one thing is the behavior of the leader. The other thing is what kind of behavior is allowed within the staff, and what people are promoted and what people are not promoted. So if you see this asshole guy who's an expert gets promoted, you say, okay, I can be whatever I've been as long as I'm a good engineer, things like this. There we say, okay, we are punctual, we start in time. The leader is in time, but somebody comes late and he doesn't say anything. It's the same thing as if he had come late. So this is how you can change the pace, how an organization is coming. And when you say, okay, kindness is something that matters for us, showing affection and love, and it's possible. And people who constantly are cruel with others see that nobody likes it and they don't get promoted. This is how you can, over time and actually very quickly, also change and set a new energy in the organization. So this personal mastery of this intention is like showing clear intention and knowing one's purpose. So this is something we can cultivate. Everybody can question ourselves.
The result is trust. Trust is the most powerful ingredient in an organization. There is no other quality. If you should choose as a leader out of several qualities, trust would be the one for you to go.
Yeah.
No information, there is no substance which allows information to travel faster and more to the point than trust. Imagine trust as a fluidum, as a fluid quality ever present in an organizational body. If that is given, everything, the body is aligned, because there is no boundaries, no hindrance, no obstacle to overcome. If trust is given, I take your word for granted, and you take mine, and I act accordingly, and the whole organization can read it. Nothing else.
So we also have the really human things, I think, the enthusiasm and the desire and the connectedness and the heartfulness, and also the passion for things, you know. And I think you can see, if you deal with organizations, are people really passionate about what they're doing, or do they just pretend to be passionate? So is there real intention? Is there fire? Is there a heart in this organization?
Coming back to executives, and their, on some points, non-awareness of their levels of their, how they show. There is one critical aspect between executives and the organization, and this is the relationship between them, the bonding. Is there a trustful relationship? Have they access to the organizational body by who they are, by the trust? If that is broken, that's a massive collapse of an organization. There's no relatedness anymore. All the steering impulses, they don't work anymore. And the fiercer the impulse has to become, the more aggressive the impulse has to become.
Yeah. And the more power,
the less gentle it is.
and the more violence you have to put on people and organizations, force them to do things because they don't see a purpose, they don't know why, and you have to make them do something with all means of power play, which is not needed, because people will follow you voluntarily if they see and they connect with the purpose of this organization represented by the leadership team. And this is where I think real empowerment starts in an organization, where they start to transform. It's not so much the logic way, it's not so much the goals that they give the organization or the strategy, but when people start to align around a shared purpose that has a meaning for them, then you don't need to do so much management things, and you reach a totally different level where people voluntarily want to contribute because they feel they're part of the thing that is bigger than them, which is a hugely human desire to be part of something. And the important thing is just not to make pretenders. If it has to be genuine, because people will see if it's just the management bag or just some pretension.
The next workshop they come.
Something that doesn't have a meaning for them. But if this is a lack of the heart, you can see organizations, they seem cold. There's a lot of anxiety. There's no trust. And people don't enjoy being there. They just go there because they need to. They don't have a better option. So do you want to have employees that are just there because they don't have a better option? How good will they be?
Good.
So, and the next point is something that I think is that we also want to bring to the party because it's hardly addressed. And this is the arena of intuition. Is this something you're familiar with, intuition? Just say yes or no. Yes, okay, thank you. So, and the intuition is something we all have experience with, you know, this is this moment where you know what's right. You don't know why you know it, you just know what's right, and you feel you are connected to a field of intelligence that's more than your private intelligence. So when we are in a creative process, sometimes just shows up in you or through you more. And it doesn't really seem that it comes from inside you, but it comes from somewhere and it comes through you. So this is the point of intuition, where you feel something from a bigger, larger field of information shows up in you, and suddenly you have a new music or a picture emerges. So this is the emergent quality. Or a new idea emerges in the team. You know, you didn't know exactly who had this idea, and it's not so important where it came from and how it led to. But it's not a logic mind thing. It's a process of where really new, genuine new things emerge. So from the mind always comes some optimization or variation of the innovation, but it's mostly more of the same, just better or a little bit different.
Fantastic. They just approach it again via mind. You know, there's a lack of creativity, and the answer by mind is, oh, we have to do a creativity workshop to be more creative afterward. And there comes an external guy or girl showing, oh, these are the 5 steps to be creative, like, I don't know, creative thinking courses based in Silicon Valley. They are the most prestigious ones. Then they have them, and then you're happy and creative, or not. So, yes, doesn't work out so much. Another intellectual booster.
And also the body intelligence is super important. It's a huge resource we're sitting on, but we don't use it. Our body is a wonderful sensor. Actually, a body is nothing than a sensor. And it's connecting all the time and reading out data and giving us information. And if we cultivate some kind of stillness and practice to notice what's going on in our body, what are these very small impulses, we can make so great decisions, and we don't have to force ourselves to, because all decisions are insecure. And we said, even though it's so overwhelming, it's so fast that we are forced to make very quick decisions, but we don't have enough information, or we have too much information. So another option is to use our body, like just put 3 options on the floor and step on it and see how our body reacts. This is what we do with our leaders, because the complexity is too big to just tackle it with the intellectual mind. So this is a big resource, a huge resource, and nobody teaches us and allows us to use it. And we talk to people in organization, and this is, I have a very strong intuition, but I need so much energy to suppress it and to rationalize it, although I know it's right. And I'm always challenged, what's the business case? So making up something. And what if we would start about cultivating this more, accessing it, using it in a world that's so overwhelming for us, that we could maybe use the full potential of our humanity and not only the mind. And of course, there is this trust in the knowing, the capacity to hold the space, and the access to this inner voice. And there are some practices, I cannot go through all of them because we're running out of time. You're getting all the slides, and you can see in yourself, but it is actually concepts also from Buddhism. The beginner's mind is, I don't know anything, not knowing already anything, because if you already know everything, nothing new can emerge, right? or following your body impulses, just practicing it, knowing it, spending time in nature, and creative writing. So everything that cultivates your impulses and translate it into action. So maybe translate intuition directly into the manifestation, which is the last point.
Yeah, manifestation. Mani, the hen. What do we bring into that first level of reality? In terms of how does it transform into activities, into physical being? It's giving thoughts form. It's allowing it to express in a certain way. And we have this, we are quite good in that. And these days we are quite good in cognition and in manifestation. And it's an expression of the mind, most. And this is how our work looked like. You know, we have massive, powerful tools around with a
15,000 atom bombs, nuclear bombs. So what he said something like
yes. And we are seeing the Himalayas draining and drying out, and only 2 billion people are drinking water from there. So massively, and we can bring things to the moon and the Mars soon, but hardly able to handle our everyday reality.
So we are so in love with our skills and what we do, but it is important. I mean, it's not enough to have an alignment in the intention. It's also necessary to bring it out there. It's not enough to have a good intention, but you have no skills in bringing it and making it happen. So there's also a technical part to it where you learn and practice whatever. That's really, is it writing or way how you can express your intention, and it can be show up in myriads of forms. We just want to bring it to the model because it's also important to be able and to train your skills to make things happen. Otherwise, nothing good happens.
And which Pandora's boxes we open, we allow ourselves to be opened or not. Just because we are able to do that, technically, intellectually, but what about the rest? And we are sitting in front of many possible boxes of Pandora, which we had no clue what will happen when we open them. And then we are better guided by a full ensemble of competences and qualities and domains. And this is what we call active mastery, personal mastery, when we see that all these 4 domains are aligned.
So you have action that is with intention, and when you can channel your intuition with intention, and then the heart gives your intuition and your mind a direction coming from the heart, and the manifestation helps you to manifest it. And we think that all of them are important. If there was to be a hierarchy, my personal favorite would be the heart dimension, but we need alignment of everything. It's like if it goes out of shape, if there is no balance, it can be harmful in every dimension. Also, only people can become very obsessed with things and so on, and become destructive too. So
what every wisdom tradition tells us, oh yeah, this could be a manifestation of today's world according to that model.
We think it's out of balance. And we think this is one of the main source of how the world looks today.
Of suffering in the world.
That there is an over-emphasis of cognition and science and technology, and the heart is very small and the intuition is somewhere left behind. And manifestation, we're also quite good, but without the heart, then we can be also very destructive. We can make massively destructive, very complicated and difficult to build weapons.
And this is actually what, because being looking at the time, what all wisdom tradition, in specific Buddhist tradition, tells us, the access is developing a practice. In every of that territory, in any of that territory. And practice is that what leads to mastery. And mastery, the interesting aspect of mastery is not the outcome. It's the attitude of mastery. It's the activity of mastery as such. Because mastery for me means something completely different than for you in the same field. You would jump 2 meters in your master unfolding, I would jump 1, because my body allows that to do, whatever. But it's the attitude of mastery which I can cultivate within myself, which I bring to the party called my life. And if I take out the mind, in terms of not identifying with that, what lives in here is what you bring to life, what our contribution to life can be. Is an attitude and a quality of mastery, which is a mountain without a top, to be honest.
It never stops.
Yesterday's mastery is not tomorrow.
And I think what's still important is to know that this is not only for the individual level, but we can also draw these pictures for teams, for leadership teams, or even for organizations. They are very like mind-focused organizations. Other organizations where the heart is very big, but maybe the manifestation is not so good. Some of the non-profit organizations have that, so they don't have to train empathy and compassion, but maybe more a little bit use more the logic or more practice manifestation. So we have all different kind of
and
forms.
It's magic what happens when executives buy in that into that as a model. When they start relating to the organization not as an organizational phenomena in pictograms or whatever, but as a kind of physical body where all this is represented. And all of a sudden they are not anymore the head of it, they are the core of it. And then they see how they can be the core of it, and they relate completely different to the department, and there is no silos anymore. But it's a body. Who can tell what is important, which is the most important part of your body right now? If you have a splint in your right toe, and you can evoke this is the most important part right now, and not your brain.
So it's about aligning and integrating it. And yeah, we don't have time now for this exercise, but maybe we just give it for you to think. Maybe you want to draw your own model, like how you see yourself and where you are right now. There's some people who said, you know, they became really sad because I see my intuition is so small, or there's not a lot of heart in my life. And then they find out they want to have a different focus and be bold about. And our message is we encourage people to start talk about these things, to exchange, to share, not even in business, especially in economy, we have to start talking about compassion, the heart dimension, our intuition. We cannot stop there and say, no, in business not possible. No, this is the exact place, it's the best and most important place where we have to go. We heard it before, it's the economy and the politician field. This is where things are happening, and people like Greta Thunberg, she can, with her heart and with her intention, she's changing the world now and starting all these climate things, and she doesn't have formal power. It's just because she's so strong and committed in all these things. So everybody can be a change maker, and this is again all the model in a nutshell. So we came from system transformation, going into leadership excellence, going into personal mastery, and looking inside, like the heart dimension, the cognition, the intention, the intuition, and the manifestation that are aligned. And if people master this, an internal transformation will start, and it will manifest, no doubt, in an external transformation of the system around you. No system is too small to be transformed. Everyone is part of a bigger system, and everyone can change the world because you are the world. Thank you very much.
The papers are online, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My understanding is that we're probably we've only got 15 minutes worth of a break before you have to head back into for the next keynote. But I think it was such a fantastic lecture that we probably I'm glad we extended the time period, and I think this whole alignment and alignment with ourselves and alignment with our organization is extremely useful for business leaders and for senior employees, and I think
And even the younger employees.
actually maybe even the younger employees will really find it really very useful. So thank you so much for your time and coming all the way from Austria, as I understand it. Yeah, and I hope we can apply all these here in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.